Himiway Cobra has completely changed my mind about what an e-bike should be. It's an off-road, full suspension tank of a fat tyre e-bike, yet still fantastically responsive thanks to the torque sensor. But it's not without its downsides. Keep watching to find out why the Himiway Cobra Forest Edition, as seen here, is probably the most fun actual e-bike I've tested yet. So let's start with the design and aesthetics. We're reviewing the Cobra in Forest Camo Edition, though you'll also find a carbon fiber black design. It's a beautiful frame wrap around what can only be described as a really chunky boy and kind of aggressive looking. Made from 6601 aluminium and featuring massive 26-inch by 4.8-inch CST brand roly-poly off-road tyres. This is by far the largest and heaviest e-bike I've tested yet, at 40 kilos or 88 pounds, measuring 83 inches from front to back. It is a tank suitable for any terrain, yet still responsive and predictable to ride. It's suitable for riders from 5'5" to 6'5", or 168 to 198 centimeters, and up to 180 kilograms or 400 pounds payload capacity, which is well above average. For reference, while watching, I'm 185 centimeters tall, or roughly 6'1", and weigh just under 110 kilograms. Now, the suspension is a key comfort feature here. Of course, you have the standard front hydraulic suspension, but you also have this neat 4-bar linkage and coil suspension on the rear. Apparently the first e-bike in the UK, at least, to feature this. Now, I won't pretend to be a physics major. I don't understand the forces that are going on here, or what it is about the 4-bar linkage system that works so well. But from what I can understand, it has to do with reducing the vertical motion that you get when accelerating or braking, as well as obviously just being better at absorbing shocks because of the way it moves around this pivot point. And from what I've researched, is also a very difficult system to actually get right. And to my amateur eyes and experience, I think Himiway has nailed it. Now, onto the handlebar. The grips are very nice, molded to your hand for comfort and better grip, but they do have a slight tendency to slip if you're really pushing down hard on them. The only disappointment on the design front is that ours came equipped with these garish reflectors on the front and back. I assume this is something for legal compliance in Europe, but they're cheap and tacky, and the one on the back of ours snapped off anyway after a bit of off-roading. Not a big deal, I'd have removed them eventually, but on the topic of legal compliance, let's also talk about the specifications. So just a quick note that this is the EU version of the bike, and in order to comply with EU laws, there are a few key differences. Although it does use the same 750 watt motor as the US model situated in the back here, PAS levels 1 to 4 are locked to 250 watts only. So if you want to comply with the law when riding, stick to PAS 1 to 4. Also, while there is a throttle on the left side here, it's limited to what seems like walking speed, so perhaps it's been repurposed as a walk assist. Technically, throttles are not allowed in the EU, at least not in the UK. Now, on the US model, the throttle alone can get you up to blisteringly high speeds, but not on this EU model, so I can't comment further on the throttle-only modes. It doesn't really do much on this one. So the hardware, as far as I can tell, is identical. It's still the same motor on the rear here, but it's been locked. Unless you go up to level 5 PAS. That's been programmed as, I suppose, an unlocked mode. And it's clear that the hardware is the same because the screen will tell you the current power output, and I can clearly see it rocketing off to 750 watts and peaking even higher. Now, I did ask them if it was possible to rebalance the PAS levels so they were more of an even distribution on this model, but sadly not. 1 to 4 is locked to 250 watts maximum for normal street riding, while level 5 is seemingly completely unlocked with the full motor power available. Now again, US viewers, don't worry about any of this. Your bike will be full power, unlocked, and this is only if you're buying from the EU or the UK. In either case though, this motor can provide an impressive 86 Newton meters of torque power. And rather than the wattage of the motor, it's that figure, it's the amount of torque that it provides that gives a more accurate representation of what the motor is actually capable of. And in this case, that is well above average and very impressive. So that out of the way, the $2,400 Himiway Cobra features a large 48 volt 20 amp hour or 960 watt hour capacity battery, which is part of the reason for that overall heavy weight. That's a lot of capacity, and the battery is effectively hidden within the frame here, though it is still removable from the underside if you need. This should mean you can get up to about 80 miles of range, which is excellent, though as ever, this will depend on your usage pattern, your weight, and the terrain you're riding on. As I said earlier, I am on the heavier side and riding in a mix of PAS 4 and 5 around really rough and hilly terrain of the Cornish countryside here. I managed 45 kilometers, and that was until I hit sort of one battery level, and then the range anxiety started, so I had to head home. You should never completely deplete a battery after all, but that's still excellent in my experience. It's a lot higher than average that I've got off any other e-bikes. Just bear in mind that that range is heavily dependent on a lot of external factors, such as your weight, the power levels you're using, the ambient temperature even, the road surface, and more. On the front and rear, you'll find Tektro 180mm hydraulic disc brakes. Now, these are a significant improvement on the mechanical disc brakes seen on cheaper Himiway models, though they could still do with being a little bit stronger due to the sheer weight of the bike. It needs about 15 to 20 foot stopping distance when riding at 20 miles an hour. Gearing is courtesy of a 7-speed Shimano Altus, pretty standard in this price range. I think it is a budget option, but it's sufficient. A lot of the components, in fact, as you can see, are fairly standard. Where the bike deviates is the gorgeous looking frame, the suspension, the motor power with that sheer amount of torque, and these massive, fantastically grippy wheels. So how about feel and performance? A key feature of the Himiway Cobra is the torque sensor, which differentiates it significantly from cheaper e-bikes. Typically anything under $2,000 is going to have what's called a cadence sensor. And until now, this is the only kind of e-bike I've had the chance to test out. So while I knew of what a torque sensor was, I haven't actually been able to directly compare. And now that I have, it's blown my mind. But what is the difference? A cadence sensor is essentially a motion sensor. It knows when you're moving, and that's about it. It's a bit laggy, and it doesn't respond to how much effort you're putting into the pedaling. It's a dumb sensor, basically. Once you're moving a little bit, it'll turn on the motor at whatever your current PAS level is. There's no nuance to it, and a lot of the time it can feel overpowering because it has no relationship to you, only to the movement of the bike and the pedals. I noticed this particularly on the Himiway M20 when I said that me riding it felt like a pretty pointless part of the equation. I would start to cycle, the motor would kick in, and then I didn't really need to cycle at all. I mean, it was just going through the motions at that point. And while that's sure to get you from A to B, it's not really cycling, is it? A torque sensor, however, is, well, more expensive for a start, but it offers a direct relationship between the e-bike and the rider. It's a force sensor, which measures exactly how much you're pressing onto the pedals, literally how much effort you're putting in. And then depending on your PAS level, will top up that power or multiply it by a lot. So this is fantastic for two reasons. Firstly, it's a lot safer. Cadence sensors on a higher power level have a tendency to blast off when you don't expect it, because of the lagginess and the fact that they're not really responding to your input. Torque sensors will only ever respond to your effort, so they're not going to suddenly whack you into full power. On the Himiway Cobra, for instance, there's almost no lag at all. Push down on the pedals, you will get some power. Secondly, and most importantly, you actually have to ride the bike. Mind-blowing, I know. Because it's responding directly to your effort, you need effort to go fast or to push the bike. It's not just going to take over for you, unless you have the US model and you're using the throttle. Of course, it is still an e-bike. So if you want a leisurely ride with little effort, you always have the option of turning up the assist level and essentially doing the bare minimum. The Himiway Cobra performed brilliantly on regular roads, but where it really shines is off-road. Those fat tyres provide an unparalleled grip on gravel and dirt and really give you confidence. It's not the nimblest of bikes, obviously. It's heavyweight, it somewhat lumbers along, but it is very smooth, predictable and safe. The only disappointing aspect of the off-road ride for me was this kickstand. I mean, it's solid. When it's down, it does the job, but when I was sort of tumbling over larger rocks and big bumps, it does make one hell of a racket. It seems like it's just too loose. I'll see if I can tighten that up, but I'm almost tempted to just take it off. So, is the Himiway Cobra worth it? Absolutely. If you're looking for something that's actually an e-bike, you know, something that you can and will have to pedal on with assistance, something that can handle off-road with ridiculous ease, something safe and secure with incredible grip, and more than enough power to take you anywhere up the steepest of hills, and just frankly something that looks incredible, this is a fantastic choice and well worth the $2,400 euro pound asking price. On the other hand, there's a few reasons you might not want to get the Himiway Cobra. It is massive and heavy, like the biggest, heaviest e-bike I've ever seen. Those of a smaller stature who would struggle to lift a 40-kilo e-bike, not a good choice. While it is great and comfortable on road conditions too, it's obviously not meant for a daily urban commute. There is not a chance you're getting this onto a train, certainly not on the subway or even up a staircase to your apartment. Not happening. But off-road, a powerful, great-looking, long-range, fun adventure MTB with a responsive torque sensor, you won't find better under $2,500. I'm James Bruce, you've been watching MakeUseOf.com reviews. Hit me up in the comments with any feedback or questions you have about the Himiway Cobra. I'll try to answer them if I can. Otherwise, consider subscribing and I'll see you next time.